What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a new installation video provided to us by Boost Auto. They sent me out a pair of cab lights that I'm going to be putting on the top of this thing. And I know what that's already going to in turn cause the hate comments for putting cab lights on a 1500, but I like the appearance. They look pretty cool to me, in my opinion. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. They're the same company that I got these tow mirrors from. They also sponsor those as well, and they've been holding up pretty good. So you can kind of see on these, should be able to tell from the angle you guys are at, but it does have a little bit of a startup sequence, so you can see there. But these cab lights should have the same function. So Boost Auto, I want to thank you guys again for sending me out the cab lights. I've already checked out their instructions on how to put them on online, and it doesn't look too difficult. So this is what the one thing that I was worried about, is having to drill into the cab, but I think we'll be all right. So as long as we follow everything to the T, there shouldn't be any issue. So I'm gonna go set this out, break open the box on my toolbox, so you can kind of see what all it comes with, how easy this is going to be to install, and give you the step-by-step process of how, if you want to do this to your vehicle, and show you guys that it's, even though it's scary, drilling into your cab, it's not going to be that hard. So let's go ahead and set this up over there, and we'll take a look of what's in the box. All right, so in this box or bag should have couple of things. This is going to be the module for the cab lights. We have our Boost Auto sticker. We have our wiring harnesses. And then as well, they actually sent out a banner that we're going to be hanging up on the garage here. Thanks again, Boost Auto. They sent out a koozie. Their monthly, I think every month they change up the picture of these, because I've gotten 3 orders of them so far, and this is like the 3rd different sticker. I'll kind of show you guys on here, so you can see kind of right here the 3 different stickers that they sent out. So that's pretty cool. But back to the unboxing over here. Don't want to show that information. And then here we have the main enchilada. We're gonna check these bad boys out. Now, they did just randomly send me these out, and they're like, hey, you want to try these out? I'm like, sure, why not? But I didn't mention to them, they didn't specify either when they sent these out if they were going to be the white and amber switchbacks, because I was doubtful. After I was getting close to the installation date, I told them, I'm like, hey, just out of curiosity, not to kind of last minute, because I've already had these for a couple weeks now, but I'm like, do you know by any chance if you sent me the lights that are the switchbacks or the amber only? And luckily they already knew that I had from the previous order they sent me on the mirrors, that I have the amber only. So they matched these to my mirrors. So thank you, Boost Auto, for that. That way we're not running with amber tow mirrors and then white LEDs on the cab lights, because that would, my OCD would have been killing me on that. So here you see the nice, beautiful cab lights engraved right there with it. Well, it looks like it might be a sticker. No, it's engraved in there. The Boost Auto, just a centerpiece, and these are labeled. I don't know if I can pick it up on camera. There it is, right hand, and we got left hand on this one. So they are already pre-labeled. So there's our lights themselves, and obviously, like I said, we already showed the module, the hardware, harnesses, and then here, if I can remember where I put my razor blade. So this is the layout as to how you're supposed to line them up onto your cab. So we're going to cut these out into smaller usable pieces, so we're not fighting this whole map right here. because you can see it all comes out as one whole piece. And you have your different sections for your passenger driver side, your center side, and your passenger side. And it lays out the areas for you to where to drill your pilot hose, line up to the glass, and the edge of the roof, and pretty much start drilling and tapping. So that is going to be the procedures for that. We're going to cut these out as soon as we get ready for it. Not ready for it just yet, but we will be ready for it later. So for now, it's going to be the teardown of the interior. All right, so on their website, they show to completely remove the headliner in order to do this install. But I'm going to show you that you can just drop the headliner and possibly just scoot it back or scoot it down enough to be able to feed all your wires through. So the first thing that I'm going to do is start unbolting the A-pillar trim, the handle, the visors, the overhead console. I believe the trim on the sunroof on mine, if you're equipped with sunroof, I think it comes off first, or it might come off with the headliner. But we'll get to that part when we get there. And then, as well as the B pillar, you're gonna have to remove first the lower part overlays on top of the top part. So you got to pop loose the bottom part first, and then undo this cap. There's a bolt behind there. Remove this center pillar piece, and my overhead console or entertainment center is actually going to, I believe, has some screws in it. So if yours has the overhead console, that is going to have some screws in it. So I'll show you guys the full process of each individual piece. So if you have a Denali style interior, this is pretty much how we're going to install cab lights. So let me go ahead and get started with the teardown, and then we'll go from there. All right, so as we start on the passenger side, you're going to remove this little cover right here, and it is going to hide a 7mm bolt that you're going to loosen and remove. And if yours is equipped with a speaker down at the A-pillar, mine main one, factory one, is going to be disconnected already, but I still have an aftermarket. So you just give the pillar trim a little tug and just pop it out from the dash. And then you go in here and remove either your aftermarket disconnect, your aftermarket or original speaker wires, which all it is just should be one connector. All right, moving on over to the passenger side A-pillar. The only difference is you got to pop these two covers on the handle, and those are actually going to be some 10mm, and then it pops off the same way. You disconnect your speaker the same way, and I'm actually using magnetic sockets to remove my bolts, because in some of these places you do have the possibility of dropping the bolts down into the pillar, especially when you're going back to reassembling it. Sometimes it does get a little frustrating. So we're going to pop these covers off, pull it from the dash, and again, disconnect your speaker wires. In my case, I have aftermarkets. All right, and continuing now on the passenger side, we're going to move your sun visor over to the side, and this is just a little cover. And once you pop this cover off, there's a couple of screws behind it. So we're going to carefully pop this off, move it down a little bit, and just twist it to move it. And then in there, you're going to have a couple of Torx, and then the same thing behind the sun visor clip. Pop that loose, and you got a couple of Torx behind there as well, or one Torx. All right, back here. All right, now you're going to remove, for the visor, 3 T15 Torx. And once you remove all 3 Torx, you can remove your visor and then disconnect your wire for your mirror light. Same thing on the visor clip It has, I believe, a T15. All right, so now there's a little bit better lighting in here. We're gonna pop off this cover right here for the lights. Once you get that cover off, we have two more T15s. And there. It's gonna be two long silver T15s. Now you just give it a little tug, and it's got two clips towards the front of it. Just gotta pull straight down. And now you can disconnect your wiring harness. All right, and as for the B pillar, as I mentioned before, the bottom just pops out. It's just held in by a couple of clips. This cap needs to be removed, and it exposes the Torx. In this case, it's going to be a T50. We're going to remove the seatbelt from the trim. All right, so here we're going to remove now the upper cover. Drop that down right in here. Store it away for safekeeping. All right, so here we're going to remove one 7mm. We can get it on. And this is where I said you got to be careful because it could have the possibility of falling down into the pillar. So just be very cautious with that. All right, so now that that 7 is removed from the top, this is also just popped on. So you just give it a couple of tugs near the bottom. Being careful not to break the pins. And this should be all that I need in order to drop the front end of the headliner down. All right, so now we're going to just repeat the same process for the passenger side. All right, at this point, all that's holding up the headliner is the two window seals on the front doors. So if you just pull these down and just give it a little tug. On mine, also what's holding it to the roof is the trim for the sunroof. So go ahead and just remove that, set it off to the back, and then that should give me enough room to get behind the headliner. So I'm going to finish removing the headliner off of the passenger side. And that really should be all I need. So all we need is enough room to pull this, to be able to run the wires. So I think for me, that should be plenty. So let me go ahead and finish pulling this side down. And that right there, I think will be plenty enough for me. However, I'm going to use my trim tool to pop the wiring harness from the A-pillar. So there we have it. Now the front of the headliner is all nice and loose and ready to start drilling now. All right, so as we can see, with the headliner down, now we're going to have access to run our wires. And like I said, we're going to be running them towards the passenger side and tapping in to the wiring harness going in for the mirror to be running our lights on the cab. As you can see, I have sound deadening on mine. So I'm going to have a little bit of a harder time. I have to clean off the kill mat that I have up there before I put the lights in. So we make sure the clip that's going to be holding these lights in hold in place where like they should. So let me go ahead and cut out my templates now, and then now we're ready to start pre-drilling our roof. Now at this point you might want to possibly take a old blanket or something to throw up in between your dash, like cover up your dash or cover up the back of your headliner to catch some of those metal shavings that's going to fall through when you start drilling through the roof. So I'm going to probably do that with those two blankets that I have there, one for the dash, one for the headliner, and then we'll get ready to start drilling. So I'm going to set you guys up on the hood of the truck so you can see from up top how we're going to be drilling. All right, so if we take our driver's side template, we are going to line up the front edge to the edge of the windshield and this edge to the edge of the cab over here. Now I'm going to tape this down first because what I want to do is I want to kind of rough estimate, check for clearance up to the factory antenna to make sure we're not going to have any clearance issues there. So I'm going to readjust this to about right there. About right there. That looks about right. Put that right there. Make sure it's nice and flat. I'm going to do one more piece over here in this corner. So it looks like it's going to go right about there. And we should have plenty of clearance between the antenna and the cab lights itself. So now make sure you get your blanket up underneath. I'm going to go ahead and throw mine up under there. Now the first hole is going to be a 1/8 inch pilot hole. All right, so here we are. So first we're going to drill our pilot holes in the center of each one. There's one. Two. Three. So I'm going to go brush that off to the side. Now I'm going to go ahead and just remove my template, but if you want, I'm just going to leave it off to the side because I want to be able to see where I'm drilling. And I don't like that when you start drilling through the paper kind of just starts tearing all sorts of which ways and just gets crumbled up. So we have our first 3 holes in the roof. So the second one that I'm going to go with now is the outer hole, which is going to be a 3/8 for the 2 outside screw holes. So the 2 outside ones, we got our 3/8 drill bit. Now we're going to do the outside holes. All right, there's our first pilot hole. All right, so there's our 2 outside 3/8 holes, and then the center one we got to drill out to a 3/4 inch, which that's going to involve using a unibit. So I actually want to go first and go through it with the 3/8, and then I'll hit it with the unibit. All right, so now we have our unibit, and fortunately for me, the biggest hole on this unibit is 3/4. So we just got to drill that center one to the 3/8, and we'll be good to go. All right, so there's the process for the driver's side one. Now we're going to move on to the passenger side. Now what you want to do also beforehand, before you start bolting this in, one thing that I would advise is you get one of those touch-up pens you can get out in auto parts stores, and just touch up the edges of this bare metal with any paint or primer. That way it doesn't start rusting on you, which is what I'm going to do right now. So I don't have any of that, either one of those touch-up paints, but what I do have is this high performance enamel. And since you don't want to just spray and go to town on the roof, what I like to do is I'll take an old paint cap, or the paint cap that came off of the can itself. This one is black, but this came off of a different can. What I'll do is I'll just spray into the cap, build up a little pool of primer, and either use like a Q-tip or a piece of paper towel, dab it into the paint, and then just dab the edges of it. But I'm going to wait to do that until I finish drilling all the holes. So that's what we're going to do at the end. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay first a piece of tape on the center, in the center area where the rear view mirror goes. I'm going to measure from the edge of the windshield seal to the edge of the windshield seal, which is 54 inches. Half of 54 is going to be 27. So if we measure 27, it's going to be about right there. And that is going to be the center of our windshield. So now we can take our template, and you've got to make sure that the center of the template arrow lines up with the center dot, and the edge of it is level with the edge of the roof. So let's go ahead and get a couple of pieces of tape ready. And let's center this thing up. Go ahead and line up the edges. And line up the edges. Alright, so on mine I have to be extra careful. On the outsides, this side has some wiring harnesses, this side has the cables for the sunroof itself, and then this is right over the sunroof motor. So I'm going to first do my initial holes and see if I can get away with just drilling them with the bracket in there, with the sunroof motor in. But what it's looking like is I might have to drop my sunroof motor, because that one is right up against the bracketry, or the center hole right here, where this one's gonna go. It'll probably clear it. So what should we do? Should we remove it, drop it, or send it? Just send it, how I usually do most of my things. We're going to start drilling. I want to double check one more time, verify that we're at the edge, verify that we're on the center. And I'm going to go ahead and start drilling my pilot holes first. Now some of you might be blowing up also in the comments, talking about how I'm scratching the paint by rubbing my hand up against the metal shavings, this and that, but the 2010 truck with original paint. I'm not too worried about it. So let me go ahead and drill out my 3/8 nail. All right, from here, we are now ready to start mounting the lights. All right, so I'm not sure what happened. I could have swore I pushed record, but I actually already installed the center and the driver's side light. So I'm just going to show you the procedures of what we do now to install the lights on. You have these square little grommets. These are just going to clip in to the 3/8 holes. It's going to be a snug fit, and that's exactly what you want. So now you take your light, and those squares are going to go to the sides, to the side holes. And then what I like to do is I'll take my grommet that it comes with, go ahead and put it on the screw itself, line it up. Now we take those. Now we take our Phillips screwdriver, and I'm going to torque or screw these down by hand. So we're going to start off on each one a little bit, so it kind of starts grabbing. And now I'm going to go ahead and just tighten one side down. It does start to get a little difficult to turn, but that just means it's getting to that end of the grommet where it's going to start holding onto the roof. So just take your time with it. Careful not to strip out the Phillips screw, because then you're in for a nice little treat of having to retrieve a stripped screw. All right, and she is mounted once you have a nice clean gap around all the way to the edge. So now we're ready to start moving on to the wiring part, because as I mentioned, I've already put on the other two lights because for some reason I forgot to push record. So we'll zoom out over here. That's how we're looking. Not too shabby. All right, so the first harness that we're going to connect is the one that connects to all three lights, and you want to connect all three of them first, and then again we're running this harness down to the passenger side of the car. So this main wiring first, connect these little individual connectors to each light. All right, so like I mentioned before, I'm going to go ahead and start wiring up, running all three connectors to each light. And then once we connect it, we're going to run it down the A pillar, and then we'll start wiring it up for functionality. But after that, we will be working on testing the lights to make sure they work before we start assembling the interior. We're going to connect each individual light, make sure it clicks, and then once we get the harness all connected, we're going to want to make sure we tie these up to the existing harness so it doesn't move around. So I'm going to go ahead and connect all three lights and start zip tying it up. All right, so my harness is secure. You can see it running right through there and above there in front of the motor assembly there for my sunroof. I already went ahead and bolted that up, but I am not going to fully bolt in my headliner just yet. So now we move to the passenger side, where I've already routed the harness and tied it up to the A pillar, and it's down beside the dash along the passenger side. So now let's move on over there. All right. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is the harness that's coming down from the pillar. We're going to strip back the green, whoops, I can hold on to it. Strip back the green wire, and we are going to connect it to the blue on the retrofit module here. Just like that, and then we're going to do the same for the black to the brown right here. All right, so now you can see that we have our green with blue, brown with black, and now you want to take a heat gun or something to heat up the shrink right here, and you're going to shrink the butt connectors uh, down. And now what I moved on to now is I connected the 4-pin connector harness to the 4-pin connector on the module itself. All right, so this is where I removed the connector that's on this body harness. In order to remove it, you just push this tab down and you're going to remove it so we can pull it back because we need to access the wires on the back of this junction block up here. And then once you pull this harness back, what we're going to be tapping into is what they call B2 wire, which is that secondary brown wire next to the red one. And we're going to be putting a T-tap on that brown wire, just like that. All right, and now from the 4-pin connector, we're going to take the orange one and shorten it up by a lot and put a T or spade connector, one of these, on the end of the orange wire. All right, and once the orange wire has the spade connector, as you can see, I routed it behind this little area because now we're ready to, once you connect it to the T connector there, now you can go back in and push this harness back in this spot, and that harness will go back there. All right, with that harness back in its place, now we're going to take the 2-pin connector and connect it to our S-series module. See if I can do this with one hand. And now we are ready to tuck this whole module, and we're going to tuck it down into the hole right here on the side of the dash panel. All right, so now what I'm going to do is the 4 remaining wires, after you've tucked everything else into the side of the dash, these wires have to go down the dash and across under the console to the underside of the driver's side. So I'm going to spend a few minutes here and use some electrical tape to wrap up this whole harness so it's not just a bunch of individual wires. So that's going to take me a minute. So once I get these individual wires routed through, I will start routing them all over to the driver's side. So let me do this real quick, and then I'll catch you guys in a minute. All right, I got the everything on the passenger side all wrapped up, and it's all routed through to the passenger side or driver's side. Sorry. Um, Now, to make this a little bit easier, you might want to use something like a coat hanger to feed it back behind, like the dash, to get down to the kick panel, and then to reroute it up on through the console to the driver's side. So I kind of just did it by hand. I didn't have any issues, but that might be a trick that you're going to need in order to route it to the driver's side. Now, we are going to work on the body control module, in which this case I'm going to need a flashlight so you guys can take a better look up in here. So behind this duct, we're going to have to remove this duct, and it is connected, I believe, on this side. See if I can do this. It just slipped in on this end. We're gonna have to move it out of the way, or just remove it completely. So I'm just gonna remove it out of my way. And we're trying to access the body control module, which is right up in here. And we need to remove the black and brown connectors to the body control module, which now I'm seeing that this duct is in the way. So I might need to remove that. So one segundo. All right, now we have a little bit more of a better view. So right here is our body control module, and we want to remove again that brown connector and the black connector to the body control module. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. See if I can do this with one hand. It's going to be a little tight. There's the black one. That one's a little bit easier. I think I'll say that too early. There we go. All right. So there's our black and brown connectors. All right, so bringing those 2 connectors down, the first one that we need to mess with is the brown connector. And looking at the back of it is pin 4. You can kind of see on there, on the very top right, that blue with white stripe, label number 4. That's pin 4. And that one we're going to have to tap into. So I'm going to strip that back, this loom back, and I'm going to put a T-tap on that pin 4. All right, so we got her tapped in, and this is actually correction. It is for the left side turn signal. So that's where you're gonna, on the blue connector, pin number 4, left side turn signal, put your T-tap. Now we're gonna go strip a lot of this back because I went too far, and we're going to start tapping into that connector. All right, so now the harness that's coming from the passenger side module, we're going to locate the red with blue stripe, going to shorten it up to length so we can tap it in, give us enough length so I can tuck it in away wherever I need to, and then we're going to put a spade connector on here and connect it to that T-tap. All right, now we're going to move on to the black connector, and on this one we are going to tap into pin number 5 for the right hand turn signal, which is this bottom blue with white stripe. So going to pull this back, put our spade connector on, and then we're going to go with the red with green, put a spade connector on that, and tap it into the connector on the black harness. All right, black harness, pin number 5. There we have our green, a red with a green stripe connected to the black connector. All right, so now on the same black wire, going straight across to pin 10, that is going to be your power wire to the retrofit module. So that's going to be on this model, the red with white stripe. And then you're going to cut your power red wire from the harness coming over. From this, cut it, and you're going to splice it to this N-line fuse on this connector right here. All right, now we can take our spade connector. We're going to strip this one back, which it already is, but I'm going to strip it back a little bit more, and we're going to tap into your power on the black connector where we just put that T-tap. All right, and again on that same connector, we are going to go to pin number 9, which is right there next to pin 10 where we just connected our power. And if I can get it out, that is going to be our ground. So I believe it's this one right here, the black with the white stripe. So I'm going to throw a T-tap onto that real quick. All right, and here we have our final wire from the harness, the black ground connected to the pin number 9 on the black harness. Now that all the connectors are wired up, I'm going to go in here now and tuck everything up under, make it nice and neat. And then I'm ready to start putting everything back, connecting it back to the body control module, putting that vent in, and tidying everything up. All right, we are all wrapped up under the wiring phase so far. So now let's give it a good old test and see how she looks. It's pretty much as high as my phone goes, but that should be all right. So go ahead and move these real quick. I was using these to take some quick pictures. Fold out our boost auto tow mirrors. Now we can see there's the pretty much daytime running feature. And if we go in here, we're gonna turn on the truck, turn on the park lights so I don't blind you. And then here's our left turn signal, right turn signal, and then emergency flashers. So that's it. That's pretty much it. So she's functioning, works all good. Now I'm ready to start assembling the headliner all back together. Now that we're all good there. And that's going to be a wrap. So I'll go ahead now and start finalizing my reassembly of the interior, which is just in turn reverse of what I did earlier. So not too shabby. Let me go ahead and finish that up, and then we'll look at everything back over. All right, and that is going to conclude the installation of the 2007 to 2013 retrofit cab light installation for the GMC Silverados or Sierras. Sorry, Chevrolet Silverados or Sierras. So make sure you click the link below. Boost Auto's link is in the description below if you want to get yourself a pair of these for your GMC Sierra or Silverado. And as well as any other accessories, they have a bunch of lights, mirrors, key fobs, running boards to retrofit your vehicle. So make sure you check them out in the link below. Also, El Gallo Bill merch is still available. Click the link below on that. Have shirts, stickers, and some lanyards still available. Again, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the videos, and that will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.